the coordination network, we were advocating, and all of us were together in a group discussing all the issues. We needed deaf-blind people to get free software, especially during the pandemic. And so we were working on that. We got a free lawyer service to help us put together all of the information. We sent it out to the FCC, and the FCC said they couldn't do anything. They turned it down. And they kept saying, no, it's going to have to go over to Congress. And the VRS services were saying, hey, we're sending all of our interpreters at home. And it was approved, and all these interpreters were working from home, and there was more accessibility, and it became unequal for all the deafblind people out there. It was so bad. And now, still, I mean, we're getting along, everything is going fine, but even still with the software itself, it costs money compared to a deaf person who's getting VRS software or a video phone software. That's free. But for a deaf-blind person, we have to pay. It costs money. And that's something that bothers me. We can go through a program if you qualify. And then all the distribution programs, if you qualify, you possibly can get that for free. But there's a lot of things out there where you would not, a lot of people out there that would not qualify for that program. And there's a big disparity. And so we have to figure out how we're going to start figuring out what we're going to do for the future so we can make sure it's equitable for deafblind people as well as deaf people. Because right now, there's no equity. And I can tell you, there's this deaf-blind man by the name of Brian. And he has a really long last name. It starts with an I. I don't have it memorized. I have really bad memory. But anyway, I'm really impressed because when we first started using a deaf-blind VRS called WYMXDB, it's a software in Finland or Sweden is one of the places that created this software. And it was great. They started testing it. It came to America. And then all of a sudden, Brian was getting frustrated with the system and was working with them to try to work out all the quirks and improvement. They did another release and there were tons of improvements. I could call my credit card company because they suspected some fraud on my credit card. And we used the system and it was great because I can read the information. We had a 1-hour discussion with my credit card company, which worked great. So that was the upsides of all of this, but still there's a lot of restrictions all over the place where we can't get the equipment. So I could go on more and more about this, but I'm gonna turn it over and let you guys discuss this.
So there are other individuals who are sighted. What are their options? Because that has to be addressed. There is a lot of inequities. And so I'd like to go ahead and bring the next panelist. I'm introducing Gabrielle, who is from Vermont, and she's going to go ahead and elaborate her responsibilities, what sort of products have helped the deafblind community. So I'll go ahead and turn it over to Gabrielle.
Hello, my name is Gabriel Joseph. I'm COO of Global VRS. I'm actually out of the sunny state of Florida. It's very hot here, but doing well. I am middle-aged, white female, long brownish blonde hair. Today I'm wearing a black shirt. I have a blue background, and I am hearing and sighted, and I go by she, her pronouns. A little bit of background about me. I did grow up in a family where many of my family members are interpreters. So I do understand sign language and I can sign. If you ever want to meet one-on-one with me, I'm more than happy to. But my signing's okay. It's not great. I'm not a professional interpreter, so I am going to use the interpreters today and appreciate their work. So At Global VRS, we are so proud of the work that we are doing to be involved in the deafblind community. We know that we are invited guests here. And while I am not deaf or blind, I have firsthand seen and heard the experiences and the challenges, especially this past year. And we are the smallest of the 4 VRS providers, but we cannot stand by and just do nothing. So we have really jumped in and tried to find creative solutions when it comes to VRS and the deafblind community. And we have found some very exciting ways that we are making it work. So if you'd like, I can go in a little bit more detail about that. Is that the first question? I believe, John? Yeah.
Yes, it is.
Okay, fantastic. So in essence, we partnered with a company out of Sweden to create MMXDB. It does connect to the Global VRS service. And what that means is the consumer, as Rene had said, can express themselves in sign language to communicate. And then the interpreter will actually type back what the person is saying to them, so then they can have it come through on their Braille reader. Just like any technology, this started first with just a PC app, and we're so excited that it's now being released and innovated to connect to Apple products as well, which we know there's a lot of new Braille readers on the market and functionality through some of those iOS devices that are now making it even more accessible. So we're really happy about that. But in general, that's how it works. This is great because with the technology, you can customize your experience, the contrast settings of how light or dark something might be, how fast the Braille reader will pick up the speed of text. You can control that for your reading comfort, and a host of other different things just to customize your experience. So that's great. How do you get the product? Some people know and some people don't. So how do you get the product? Well, first you have to register. In this case, you would register with Global VRS because we are a VRS provider. We then make sure that you are entered into the URD, the user registration database, and issued a 10-digit number. You then have to get a license for the software. Once you have a license for the software, you can then download it, log in. You can complete test calls with our customer care. And once they give the thumbs up that everything is looking good, off you go and you can make calls to the world. So the process itself is a pretty simple process and concept. Many have been successful doing it, but there have been challenges.
Great, thank you so much for that explanation. So we'll go ahead and return back to the panelists. The next panelist that I'd like to introduce is Bill Wallace. Bill Wallace is an FCC advisor. Could you explain recently with the IP relay, what's been going on with the FCC? If there's anything that you can share maybe on the VRS for the deafblind community, would you mind elaborating a bit about where the FCC stands today?
Thanks, John. Good afternoon. My name is Bill Wallace. I'm an attorney advisor in the Disability Rights Office at the FCC. I'm a middle-aged white male with gray hair, glasses. Today I'm wearing a blue shirt and a dark blue coat, and I'm sitting in front of a white brick fireplace in my dining room. And I'm based in Washington, D.C. So I'd like to point out that with respect to IP relay, that the FCC at its next open meeting, which is August 5th, that's a week from Thursday, is going to consider voting on an adoption of a notice of proposed rulemaking that is directed at modifying the compensation methodology for the providers of IP relay, which is T-Mobile today. But one of the important parts of that NPRM is that the FCC is asking for comments on who uses IP relay, what the benefits of the service are, what are the critical features of the service for the people who use it, to help the FCC figure out how to sustain the service. So we would, after the item is adopted, assuming the item is adopted next Thursday, the FCC will release a public notice setting the dates for filing comments and reply comments. And of course, you don't have to file full-fledged comments in the Commission's electronic comment filing system. It's okay also to file a brief comment, which is just a brief type into the filing system. And so we would love to hear from people who use IP relay, what it is that's important about the service to them, and even how many people use it, and whatever is important to them about the service. I'd also like to note that another matter that was recently released by the FCC, and that is that the Commission again authorized $10 million to be spent in the National DeafBlind Equipment Distribution Program, which is a program that is directed at people who have severe vision loss, severe hearing loss, and pursuant to the statute which Congress passed, it is low-income individuals. And by low income, the FCC set the standard at 400% of the federal poverty guideline, which is on, again, at the Disability Rights Office website. You can find this, can be accessed. So right now that means about $50,000 for a single family, a single household, a person with a single household, and for a household of about four, that's about $106,000. So that program is available to get equipment such as computers, braille displays, etc., that can be used to assist deafblind individuals to make calls to whoever they want to. And I know that program helps thousands of people each year. And as you may know, this is totally the FCC funds it. The actual distribution of equipment and the assessment of people and the training and everything else that is required for a deafblind person to use the equipment is conducted through state programs, state equipment distribution programs. And those are the people that individuals would contact. A list of all the state contact persons is again at the FCC's website, fcc.gov/accessibility under the National Deafblind Equipment Distribution Program page. And I will turn it back to John.
Great, thank you so much for explaining that. So now that we've done the introductions and we know who the panelists are, I'd like to give an opportunity for our panelists, all four of you, if you have any questions or comments to any previous comments that were made from before, whether that's with Bill, the FCC, Rene, Keith, any of you, if there's anything you'd like to share about T-Mobile, I'd like to call on you. And I see that Gabrielle has raised her hand.
Sure, thank you. So this is Gabrielle. So in our experience in providing VRS to the deafblind community, I know that I ended with that there's been some challenges. And with any new innovation in technology, we know there's challenges. But what we're really trying to find are solutions, right? And that's why we come to TDI and conferences like this, so that we can find solutions. Some things that I would love to throw out there as part of the solutions are an increased access to technology. So as Bill had mentioned they do have the National Deafblind Distribution Program, which is wonderful. But we have experienced some people who have registered who can't get the license for deafblind software because of those income caps. And so, you know, if there's more discussion that we might be able to give to emphasize not having income caps in order to get access to some of this technology, you know, that is definitely something we'd like to put out there. Not just that, because there's been a tremendous effort on behalf of the Commission for this National Deafblind Distribution Program, which we're very proud of and to be supporting. But on the flip side, maybe there's alternative ways that software can be developed for deafblind and funded in a different mechanism, whether it's an exogenous cost reimbursement mechanism or another tool where these costs can be absorbed and innovation can be made specific for the deafblind communities. We would love to continue discussions on that. I think the other frustration that we have heard from clients trying to use the service is the registration process. So they go through a lot of work in order to get registered with the National Deafblind Distribution Program. And then they come to VRS and we have to get them in the URD. And then we have to make sure we get approvals. And then we have to try and help get the license for the technology. And there's a lot of stopping points for them. And they've expressed that they would really love to have a way for the National Deafblind Distribution Program and the VRS registration requirements to somehow coincide. That if they've already registered through one, can they just be fast passed through the other so that they're not having to duplicate the work with resources that are already so limited. And so here at Global, those are two things that we feel very passionately about, and we will work together with any entity who is willing to work on those two initiatives to make the process easier.
Thank you so much for explaining that. Now, I did see Rennie had his hand up, and then I'll turn it over to Bill after.
Want me to do it? You want me to
So there was, as far as advocacy goes and what that looks like. Now, it's been 10 years and it's time to update, to revise and reauthorize. And propose that to Congress. Now we're asking for advocacy for free video phone for the deafblind community, for equal accessibility, just like those in the deaf community.
We have to stay on them.
And
sure. So we have to talk about how we're gonna give the video phones to make sure it's equitable, just like a TTY or going back and forth with from one person to the next. So that's one thing that we could do, that we can figure out how to connect. Something else is you can be able to connect to Sorensen VP and you can connect that way. And so you can add a keyboard and that works. If one person is typing and then you could type back and forth. And so you just add a different service onto what's already made. So something that we can, a starting point. So that way we can, just thinking of more ways that we can support this and advocate for this. Also the software benefits more people than just deafblind people. Because if you think about it, hard of hearing people can use that. They can use that TTY aspect plus seeing a picture there through the video, and they could laugh, they can make funny faces, they can show their emotions as well as type the information. It's great. So there's a lot of cool options that can come with this software. So we could just build on it and expand on what we have already, and it'll benefit more people.
that is awesome. I'm gonna go ahead and turn that over to Bill. Now we have a question for you. This is from the audience. And then I'd like to go ahead and ask the next question. So Bill, go ahead.
Hi, this is Bill. I'd just like to say that I think Gabrielle's ideas are interesting. I think one of the things I'd like to make clear is the Disability Rights Office and the FCC generally would like to hear any ideas about how to improve communications access for people who are deafblind or people who are deaf or vision impaired. Anyway, the idea about integrating the deafblind equipment program and the user registration database, it's a really interesting idea. The deafblind equipment program is creating a new database to track equipment distribution that's underway, so maybe it could be rolled in. I'd also like to point out, just so it's clear, that the equipment distribution program has a low income requirement that was placed in the statute by Congress. So the equipment distribution is at this time limited to low income individuals. And the TRS services, I know that some services give away equipment, but TRS, the only service that is regulated is the service itself. Under the TRS rules, we don't regulate equipment. The equipment distribution program is the only program that distributes equipment. And the TRS providers who choose to give away equipment do that on their own volition. So there's a big difference between the equipment that's distributed by the deafblind equipment distribution program and the other TRS providers. So it's not really comparable. So just wanted to make that clear. And I'll turn it back to John.
So I would like to stay with you, Bill. Bill, I have a question from the audience. The question states, are there any opportunities to work with the FCC to explore mandated and provide the communication facilitators from VRS providers so that there is equitable accessibility and for those individuals who are deaf and blind?
John, could you repeat the question?
Sure. Do you have an opportunity with the FCC to explore mandated communications facilitators for accessibility, to explore mandated services from video relay services that are equitable for individuals who are deaf and blind?
Well, I mean, certainly our goal is to provide equitable services for people who are deaf and blind, as well as deaf and vision impaired. So I'm not sure what I would need to know, we would need to know at the FCC is what is the barrier that needs to be removed in order to make it equitable, and that's what we'd like to know. So I don't know if the person can answer that question, but the starting point is to know what is the barrier that needs to be removed. Thanks. I'll turn back to John.
Okay. Gabrielle, do you want to expand a little bit on that as far as what your experiences have been with working with the corporate, working hand in hand with the FCC, and what needs to be provided for the deaf-blind individuals? Do you mind elaborating a bit on that?
Yeah, absolutely. And first and foremost, I think the FCC does amazing things with such a small team of people, and they have a huge workload on them. And so there's so many different topics to tackle, but we have to push the needs of the deafblind community further up on the top of the priority list. So for example, just taking something as simple as technology, right? If we are VRS providers, then today, where else do you go to get technology? Maybe you get technology off the shelf, right? Which is great. You can get computers and laptops through the National Deafblind distribution program, but again, if you qualify, right? And so these products are excellent, but how many of the products are really targeting the needs of the deafblind community? If you download an app used for a general hearing individual, that app should not perform the same as if you are a deafblind individual needing to use the service. There's additional needs, such as connection to Braille readers, connection to JAWS readers, screen readers, high contrast, speed at which communication is flowing in between those products. That today is not written in the rulings. There's very broad strokes that just say communication should be established, but communication for one specific community does not fit the communication modes that maybe the deafblind community needs. And so, you know, I think there's opportunity in the future to maybe write into the rulings, maybe interoperability or technology specs that are specific to the deafblind community, of specific settings that should be available to all, and not just, again, if you happen to be under a certain income cap. And while that's not the FCC and that's Congress, how do we make change to Congress to make this more widely available for all? And as mentioned in the original presentation, RTT and real-time text is something that is supported, I believe, out of the 3 out of 4 VRS providers today. And if RTT can become much more widely available and standardized, it gives a much different experience. And with my business hat on, I might be cutting myself out of some VRS work, right? Because with RTT, you may not need VRS, right? And so some VRS providers might be scared of that. Others might embrace it. Here at Global, we embrace it. At the end of the day, we're about communication. We're not about the almighty dollar, but there still takes a lot of dollars to run a business. So there's a balance there, right? That being said, I think RTT standardization is a really big change that could be formalized among all providers so that you can have that experience during any relay call, and that would also be a significant impact to the experience.
Great. Now turning it over to Bill. Bill, I have a question for you. How do deafblind individuals reach out to the FCC if they want to submit a complaint? Is there an official point of contact? Is there a link that you can share where a deafblind individual can submit an appeal? If you want to add a little bit on that, Bill.
Thanks, John. This is Bill. Yes, if you go to the FCC homepage and click on complaints, there is a specific category for accessibility complaints. So we obviously read every complaint that we get at the Disability Rights Office, and that's one way to let us know about issues that may be facing the deafblind community with specific pieces of equipment or specific services. And I'd also encourage people who use NGRelay to, file comments when the comment period begins in both as individuals and advocates organizations, to file comments and let us know what is good about NGRelay, what needs to be changed, what needs to be improved for communication access for deafblind individuals. I'll turn it back to John.
Thank you. This is John. I'd like to check in with Keith. Rennie, I'd like to give you an opportunity to add any thoughts. Okay, Keith, should I see your hand up? And then go ahead, Keith. So this is Keith speaking. So in regards to innovation and quality for technology and telecommunications, what I'd like to recognize is the transition within the next few years. We are moving very fast. It's at a very rapid pace. T-Mobile strongly believes that we have bold innovations and to lead to change. That is a top priority that we have, and our goal in getting there, that it's possible to design and build. And once everything is accessible, then it's the user's experience that's the most part of this procedure. That's where deaf-blind individuals will be able to have the same accessibility for those who have everyday accessibility today. So once that deaf-blind consumer shares that they're able to use these services effectively, then that means that we have the opportunity to lead, ask questions, outreach, reach out to the community members. Because again, I'd like to emphasize that those consumers are very important to us. And what that looks like in the future, that change cannot happen without us. So it's important to include everyone to take part of this project. And some of the challenges that we may find with other companies and with FCC that's run, we would become involved with their committee, their business, and to see where the space fits for those deaf-blind community members. Without having us a part of that conversation, we also like to have the opportunity to lead. Okay, this is John. I'd like to go ahead and turn it over to Rennie. Rennie, I saw that you had your hand up. So this is Rennie here speaking. First of all, I'd like to share that it's important to provide free video phones. Because I am deaf-blind, I did not get a free video phone because I'm considered a third party. So Sorensen and other video relay services produce their own products and distribute that. But when it comes to other companies, like Global Ventures, they should provide those products for free, but they don't. Anyhow, so now what my hope is that Congress will eliminate the cap on funding and to reach out to Congress to see what the next steps are, what to expect. This is John. Thank you so much for sharing. I think we are running out of time here. I am looking here at the time. Looks like we'll be wrapping up shortly. Now, before we close this session, do any of the panelists want to elaborate any more on some thoughts, feelings, anything that you feel that the audience may need to know as far as FCC goes and how sighted individuals can really advocate for the deafblind community? Are there any last remarks before we close this session from the panelists? No, I don't. I'm gonna give it just a moment. Okay. Gabrielle?
And just in closing, I'd like to jump off of what Keith had mentioned about leadership. More deaf-blind individuals have to participate in testing new equipment. Innovation is happening, change is happening. Technology from 3 years ago is not what it was today, and it's going to be even better next year. But there has to be a more concerted effort from all providers in all areas of technology and innovation to include the deaf-blind individuals to do the testing, provide the feedback. That's something that we put a concerted effort into. And part of the reason there was such an improvement on the product we have from a year ago is because of the feedback and participation from individual users taking the time to give feedback. So we thanked all those who participated. If you haven't tried it, step out on a limb, try some new technology. It might be a little scary, it might be a little hard, but we're going to be here every step of the way. We would love the feedback because it truly is your feedback that creates the change.
Okay, I'd like to go ahead and turn it over to Bill, and then we'll wrap it up here shortly. Go ahead, Bill.
I'd just like to echo what Gabrielle said. Feedback to the FCC is also important. So, file comments. It's docket 03123, 03-123. You can read the NPRM on the Commission's events page under the agenda for August 5th. Anyway, thank you. Thanks, John.
Great. So unfortunately, I'm going to go ahead and close the session because we are out of time. I do apologize. But before I do that, I'd like to thank the panelists, the interpreters, the audience, and for those of you who have participated, and most importantly, the sponsors for making this happen. I hope that everyone here, on behalf of TDI, I hope that everybody enjoys the conference. And please do enjoy the next session. It's the ASR plenary, and I hope to see you all. Enjoy yourselves. Bye-bye.